sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.
Okay, so this week we are going deep on Mitch McConnell.
Oh, yeah?
And his retirement announcement.
Big news.
Yeah, I know, retirement, not usually like front page stuff,
Right.
But this is Mitch McConnell, this isn't just anybody.
Exactly. This is the guy who's been a senator since, 1985?
Yeah, and think about this. He was the longest serving Senate party leader, in U.S. history.
It's a big deal.
So what does it all mean? I mean, for the Senate itself, for how things actually work in Washington.
Yeah, what does power look like now? Those are the big questions.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and it's interesting, the timing of it all, right? He makes this announcement on his 83rd birthday.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, so, the guy's had a long run, almost 40 years in the Senate.
It's hard to imagine.
And then, of course, he's been having some health issues lately.
Right, the fall. And wasn't there something about, polio symptoms coming back?
Yeah, there were some reports about that.
So it really makes you think, even these powerful figures...
They're human.
They're human, yeah.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder how much those health concerns played into his decision.
Yeah, I'm sure it was a factor, but you can't ignore the power this guy wielded, even recently.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about his time as Senate Majority Leader.
From 2015 to 2021?
Yeah, that's 6 years where he was really calling the shots, setting the agenda. And don't forget about all those judges he got confirmed.
Oh, yeah, the judicial appointments.
That's a huge part of his legacy.
They'll be making decisions that affect all of us for years to come.
Absolutely, on everything from healthcare to the environment, you name it.
And it felt like every other week there was another confirmation battle happening.
It was nonstop.
McConnell was the architect of that whole strategy.
Oh, without a doubt, he was incredibly effective at getting Trump's nominees
variously reshaping the courts.
Reshaping the federal judiciary, yeah. And he even went so far as to change Senate rules to make it happen.
Which was a pretty controversial move.
Yeah, a lot of people were worried about the long-term consequences of that.
Okay, so beyond just the numbers, how did McConnell's approach to these appointments actually change things?
Well, one of the biggest impacts is the ideological shift.
More conservative judges?
Right. A lot of the judges appointed during that period are considered to be pretty conservative.
So their rulings will probably reflect that for decades to come.
Yeah, especially on big issues like abortion, gun control, voting rights.
So even though he's leaving, his influence is going to be felt for a long time.
Oh, absolutely. That's a powerful legacy.
But didn't he clash with Trump on some of those appointments? I vaguely remember some pushback.
You're right. There were a few instances where McConnell broke with Trump, even voted against some of his cabinet nominees.
Like who?
Well, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for Health and Human Services.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Tulsi Gabbard for Director of National Intelligence.
Okay.
And Pete Hegseth for Defense.
Right, I remember those names. They were all pretty controversial.
Yeah, and McConnell was actually the only Republican to oppose both Gabbard and RFK Jr.
Huh, interesting.
So what's that tell you?
Well, it seems like he was willing to go against his own party when he felt strongly about it.
Exactly, when he felt a nominee was really unqualified or too extreme.
That's pretty significant, especially given how much emphasis there is on party loyalty in Washington.
It really is. It challenges that whole idea that party comes before everything else.
So in those cases, it seems like McConnell put his own judgment first.
His own vision for the Republican Party, yeah.
That adds another layer to this whole power dynamic thing.
Right. It's not just about blindly following the party line.
It's about strategy, calculation, making moves that serve your own goals.
Exactly. And McConnell was a master of that game.
So even though they were in the same party, his relationship with Trump was...
complicated, yeah.
Yeah, full of tension.
Okay, so we've got this picture of McConnell as a powerful figure shaping the judiciary, sometimes even defying his own party.
But it wasn't all smooth sailing with Trump, was it?
Not at all.
That relationship was pretty rocky at times.
Yeah, and that tension really shows how much personal ambition and political calculation can come into play.
Even within a single party?
Even within a single party, yeah.
Wow, fascinating stuff.
It is.
Okay, so we've got this this complicated figure, a real master strategist, but someone who also wasn't afraid to bump heads with even his own party's president.
Right, and that's a big question, right? What is that kind of legacy and that kind of relationship? What does that mean for the Republican Party now that he's stepping back?
Yeah, especially heading into the 2028 election.
Exactly. The stakes are super high, and it's who fills that void? Can anyone really step into those shoes?
Right. It's not just about one person leaving. It's about what comes after.
Exactly.
And can the Republicans find a way to unify? I mean, the party's been pretty fractured.
Especially after Trump.
Yeah. So will it be back to that, that McConnell era kind of pragmatism, or is it full steam ahead with Trumpism? Yeah,
big questions. And it's not just an internal Republican thing either.
Right.
I mean, you have to think about what this means for the Senate as a whole.
Yeah, it's already facing some pretty big challenges.
Polarization, gridlock, people just not trusting the system.
It's almost poetic in a way.
How so?
Well, you've got this giant of the Senate stepping down at the same time that the Senate itself is having this kind of like existential crisis.
It's definitely a turning point, yeah. And it makes his farewell speech all the more interesting.
Oh, yeah. What did he say?
Well, he actually sounded pretty optimistic about the future of the Senate.
Really?
Yeah, despite all the turmoil and the challenges, he talked about, its endurance,
Huh.
like its ability to kind of weather the storms and keep functioning.
That is surprising. I mean, you'd think after all those years in Washington.
He'd be jaded.
Yeah, a little jaded, but do you think he was being genuine, or was that just like a calculated farewell message?
I think there's some genuine respect for the institution there.
Okay.
I mean, he's seen firsthand how the Senate can be a place for debate, for compromise, even for progress.
Right.
Despite its flaws.
Yeah, I get that.
He may be leaving, but he seems to believe it can still work. It can still play that role.
Okay, but let's be real. There are some serious headwinds facing the Senate right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Like you said, polarization.
Huge problem.
Feels like the two parties are just further apart than ever.
Yeah, finding common ground these days feels almost impossible.
And social media, the 24-hour news cycle, that doesn't help.
No, it just makes everything more divisive.
Right, less thoughtful, less deliberative.
Exactly.
And then you add on top of that, like, this erosion of public trust.
Oh, yeah.
People are just so disillusioned with the whole system.
And creates a real uphill battle for the Senate, for sure.
So can they adapt? Can they overcome all of that?
That's the big question. Can they find a way to restore some faith in their ability to actually govern?
Well, maybe McConnell's absence actually opens up some space for that to happen.
How so?
Well, think about it. With such a dominant figure gone,
Yeah.
maybe there's room for new voices, new leadership.
It's possible.
It could be a chance for a real shakeup.
A realignment of power, maybe even a change in how they approach governing.
Okay, so let's play that out a bit. Who are the contenders who might step into that leadership vacuum?
Well, it's too early to say, for sure.
Right.
But it'll be fascinating to see what happens. Will the Republicans try to maintain that same kind of tight control that McConnell had? Or will things become more fractured?
And on the Democratic side, do they try to seize this
It
opportunity?
suits their agenda, yeah.
And how does all this impact the balance of power between the two parties?
I mean, could this be a turning point?
For either the Democrats or the Republicans?
These are all questions that will play out over the next few years. I mean, the one thing that is clear is that the political landscape is changing.
And McConnell's retirement is just one piece of that.
Exactly. It's like we're at one of those choose-your-own-adventure crossroads.
I like that analogy.
There are so many different paths the Senate could take now.
And the decisions they make in the next couple of years will have a huge ripple effect.
On the future of American politics, yeah.
Wow. It's a lot to think about.
It is.
Okay, so wow, lot to process here.
Right.
We've gone from this like political titan, McConnell, to the inner workings of the Senate, and now it's kind of like, okay, what's next?
Yeah, exactly.
So, what are the big takeaways for you? Like, as we've gone through all this, what really stood out?
I think for me, it's just the sheer impact McConnell had on the Senate. I mean, you really can't deny that
Yeah.
he knew how to play the game, how to get things done. Whether you agree with his politics or not, the guy was effective.
He was a force, that's for sure. But it's interesting, we also saw like moments of vulnerability.
Yeah, with the health issues.
Right. And it ultimately led to his retirement. It's like a reminder that even these, these giant figures,
They're human.
they're human. Yeah.
At the end of the day,
Makes you think.
It does.
And it makes you think about their decisions too, like McConnell's leaving opens up this whole period of transition.
Right. No matter how influential someone is, eventually there's a changing of the guard.
It's the end of an era, and that creates a vacuum.
And that vacuum has to be filled.
New leaders, new ideas.
New priorities.
Yeah, and that's what makes this whole thing so fascinating.
It's like a whole new chapter starting.
So, okay, big question. What does it all mean for the future? For the Senate, for us, for politics in general? What should we be watching for in the months and years ahead?
I mean, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And if I'm being honest, I don't think anyone really knows what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But here's something to think about. McConnell's retirement, it's a big deal. But it's also just one piece of a much bigger shift happening in American politics right now.
Oh, how so?
Where you've got this whole generational shift happening, right? And then the parties are kind of realigning themselves. Plus, there's this growing sense of urgency around all these major issues like climate change, social justice, the economy.
Yeah, it feels like the old playbook isn't working anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So moving forward, I think the key is to stay informed, stay engaged.
Don't check out.
Yeah, and stay curious. Pay attention to who the new leaders are, what the new ideas are, how is power shifting. Ask questions, Don't be afraid to get involved. Shape the future you want to see.
Well said. Well said. And that is it for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.
Sound the alarm. I'm coming up. We'll have the ball. I'm sweet like a buttercup. You're